Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
doing
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Awesome.
I was waving, but the backdrop won't let me wave. So I'm just, it's like I've got no hand.
Oh no.
uh, but um, but if you see who's behind you, whoo,
Yeah, I don't want to turn around in case, something scary there.
yeah, probably is a good idea not to turn around. Well, thank you everybody who is here watching live with us. My name is Kat, and this is our lovely Luna. I'm sorry, this is our lovely. I don't. Who am I? I have an identity crisis. I'm Luna. This is Kat.
Hi.
Sorry, identity crisis for a second there. I don't know who I am, but I do
I
know that.
possessed you. I
Yeah.
possessed you. Yeah.
Ooh, you put a curse on me, and you're gonna follow me around. Ah. The the only thing that I do know is that our live guest today is CJ from the Virosis show. Um, do you want to tell us, CJ, a little bit more about the Virosis show?
Yeah, so it's a podcast that I do with my best friend Graham. Hello, big Graham D. How you doing? We basically feature artists from around the world, underground artists, metal and hardcore mainly. We have a partnership with a label in Australia called 1054 Records, and we try and feature their artists and other artists, just cool underground up and coming bands. We have interviews, we play some of their music, and we also have just some fun features where we just have a bit of a laugh. We have a feature called The Draft, where we take a random list of some kind and a random situation, and then we take it in turns to like NFL style draft, like something from the list to put into the situation. So, for example, we've done, I think my favorite one we did was the Walmart zombie apocalypse, where we took the top 20 selling items in Walmart in whatever year it was, and we were allowed to take 3 items each into the zombie apocalypse. And obviously, you're limited by what's on the list. And there were things like crayons on there and toilet roll and stuff like that. And it was quite fun. So yeah, we have fun with that and try and bring the world some some underground cool music.
That sounds really fun. I know there's a lot of crosses between metal music and horror. So those two have sometimes gone hand in hand. So we really appreciate that. And thank you so much for being on our show. You are our first, right? Let me count. Yeah, you would be our first guest. That's like a fan guest.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
cool.
appreciate you being on.
No,
So
it's an honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited.
yeah, awesome, and we get to see your lovely face as well as hear all the British isms. Um, so let's see. We have something remarkably planned for you guys. We're going to discuss The Grudge in greater detail. This is a franchise I completely forgot about until CJ brought it up, and I'm glad you did because I had so much fun rewatching these. Miss
Yeah,
Cat?
it's sorry.
I was going to say,
Repeat.
Miss Cat, did you like it? And how about you, CJ?
I love it.
I love it. I tend to get the Grudge and the Ring kind of mixed up. The long hair creepy girl. And there's so many different versions. You got the June, you got the awesome Rami versions, which is the ones that we watch with Sam Rami producing those. So that those ones are close to heart, at least, especially the first one and the second one too for a little while because it has my girl Sarah Michelle Gellar in there, Buffy, facing something that she really doesn't know how to face, and I don't think I could be able to help her in any capacity, or I don't think any of us would be able to either.
No,
CJ,
it's one of my
how did you
favorites.
like it? Oh, it's your favorite
It's one
franchise?
of my yeah, it's one of my favorite horror films. I think because the Japanese and the American, obviously we'll go into details about the differences, but obviously the first American one is by the same director and it's the same Japanese cast, so they're quite similar. It's not like a lot of other remakes. Like the remake of The Ring didn't have the atmosphere of the Japanese one, but the American Grudge it's almost a perfect horror film. It's got a perfect ending. It's one of the only films that ever gave me nightmares as an adult. The first few times I watched it, I had Kayako in my nightmares, which is quite a weird experience for me because I watch a lot of horror movies just like you do and a lot of your viewers. But that's the only film that really somehow invaded my psyche and kind of freaked me out. It's mental, but it's almost a perfect horror film, I think.
Yeah, for sure. For me personally, when I watched the first one, I rewatched it again. The scene that kind of creeped me out is that security camera footage. For some reason, security camera footage is creepy because
Mm,
you're already watching a film, and the fact that the actors, or I should say, the characters are watching something in a film themselves, like for example the security camera, it's like a film within a film, but then
mm,
when it reaches out to the character it's also reaching out to you. And then that weird, like, I don't know, something bizarre happens when that occurs and it freaks me out. I don't know why, but I don't know, I didn't like it when especially when she popped up in the camera, and I
mm.
was like, oh nope, put her back, turn off the monitor, just forget about it.
The Japanese are good with sort of technology and horrors. I found. I mean, there's a whole raft of J horrors, like One Missed Call, for example, and they're just good at it, at sort of bringing technology because it makes them. I think it makes them more real. Because, for example, like if it's a film just about a ghost, you know, you can believe or not believe in ghosts. But as soon as you bring technology into the scenario, like things like security cameras, which is everyday technology, then that makes it more real for the viewer. You know, it makes it more freaky, if you want.
I completely agree, CJ. Takashi Shimizu, he does some amazing things with darkness and light, and that's one of the two scariest parts for me, Luna, is that part where you see a shadow and it becomes her, and then it's coming at you. You're like, no, 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 what do I do?
Yeah,
My other most the part that really scared me is under the blankets. Like you're not safe under
yeah,
the blankets.
yeah.
No, she gonna get you.
That's one of the things I absolutely love about the whole franchise is I think what Takeshi Shimizu, sorry if I say the name wrong, one thing he does brilliantly is he removes traditional safe spaces from horror. So normally when you watch most films, there are sequences at night which, you know, an audience expects to be scared, and there are sequences at day where you don't expect to be scared. And the two things I'd point out, one is the one you mentioned, Kat, with the blanket, because that is a traditional safe space, hide under the bed or hide in your bed, that kind of thing. That safe space is invaded, which again messes with your psyche as a viewer. And the other scene is when Sarah Michelle Gellar's on the bus and Kayako just appears at the window. It's broad daylight, she's on a bus in a public space. Ordinarily would be considered for the viewer, where the viewer can relax watching the movie because it's just moving the story on, because, you know, Karen, the character, is talking to whoever she's talking to, and then suddenly this face appears and you leap, you know, 10 feet off your couch because you're not expecting it. And again, you're put on edge for the rest of the movie because there's just no safe spaces for the viewer, and that's why it's so brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree that that scene freaked me out. And what freaked me out the most, to be honest, is most ghost movies in America, when they go to a haunting, like a haunted house, etc., the haunting stays in the house. Like they only get attacked in the house, etc. Once they leave the house, they kind of can retreat and do what they need to do.
Mm,
But not in this case. The fact that that curse or whatever, what the grudge curse was following them to even their safe places, work, their apartments, their any place, trains, elevators. That just made it unsettling to me because no matter where you are, this is going to follow you and eventually be your ending, and that's quite disturbing.
mm.
You can't get rid of it. It's just gonna follow you. Did that creep you out, CJ?
Yeah, I'd say it's the only film that gave me nightmares, and maybe on a sort of deep psychological level, it's because the movie invades all your like traditional safe spaces as I described. then in your own sleep when you're dreaming, I suppose you might consider that your own safe space. I mean, I've watched all Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy never appeared in my dreams, but Kayako did appear in a few of my actual real dreams. So, good job, he done it.
That's pretty great. I wanted to discuss a little bit about the character it just I don't know how the Sarah's character, her name was, I believe, Karen, how
Karen, yeah.
her character was so affected by all this when she was just a caregiver, right, to the elderly lady, and then now, towards the end, spoiler alert, guys, if you haven't seen this, sorry, but yeah, towards the end, she is in a insane asylum, kind of institutionalized towards the beginning of the second, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for me to see that she started out as a good person and then she still remained a good person, but society now sees her as crazy, and she murdered her boyfriend, she set the house on fire. Like, now she is the victim in more than one way, and to me that was a really really hard thing, because you try to do the right thing and then you get fucked over. So that to me was very scary to see how society did not understand her at all, and instead of helping her, just, oh, you're crazy, it's your fault, and you know what I mean,
Mm.
instead of seeing that she was a victim to this curse, she became the crazy and the enemy, per se.
Yeah, I suppose there's almost sort of shades of Exorcist 3 there, isn't there, really, where obviously, the hero from The Exorcist is Father Karras, who ends up in an insane asylum, having saved the little girl. He's in obviously in the insane asylum in 3. So I suppose that's it's probably not a nod, but we've seen that before in horror, and you're right, it does kind of tear up the hero script, really. You believe in a character for being the hero of the piece, if you like, and then it turns out they can't beat it either. They basically lose, I suppose, and that makes for unsettling viewing.
I want to know your guys' take on, do you know when some people, they were saying, oh, so and so went missing, and there's some scenes where the Grudge chick, I don't remember her name, but she takes bodies somewhere. Where do you think she's taking these people once she kills them? Like, do you think she's like holding them like in some sort of purgatory? What do you guys think about that?
I think
But
she's taking them to another dimension, kind of like in Stranger Things, like the upside down, like somewhere between the earth and hell. Maybe not directly in hell, but kind of maybe one of the levels, perhaps, I would think.
yeah, I would think that's pretty spot on. I mean, I'm not too familiar with sort of like Buddhist mythology in respect to life and death and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I get the impression it's some kind of like purgatory, because she's obviously, Kayako's spirit is held in the current realm, if you like, by being the curse, by being the rage of the curse. And I suppose who she takes then become also in that same realm. Whether the rage affects that person, then I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I think you're right, Kat. It's some kind of like Japanese purgatory, I suppose. But I profess a little bit of ignorance when it comes to the specifics of how that ideology works.
Yeah. I can see how you guys would think that. I didn't know, like, that's why I wanted to ask you guys your take, because I'm like, I wonder what she's doing with all these people. She's gonna make a Grudge army or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you see it with the schoolgirls in the second US film. Obviously, they and the school teacher, they are in the same as Kayako. They appear to in the same way that Kayako does, don't they? In the scene with the principal's office. They're all
Yeah.
kind of there. So it suggests that they are kind of existing in our realm, but in this sort of form that Kaiko's done, because they are killed in the grip of a powerful rage, as is described at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. I absolutely love the cinematography when um Karen, in the first movie, when Karen's like, "Oh no, my boyfriend's going to this house," she goes there, and as she's going up the steps, you see like the sun come out, and then everything's fine, like a dream state, and then you see the flashbacks, and then the flashbacks aren't in this sunny, beautiful time; they're in black and white. So then, once that's over, she goes back down the stairs, and then kind of the sun goes down again and it becomes dark and cloudy. Why do you think they chose that, to like when she's about to see the black and white footage, why the sun came out, and kind of, do you think it was like some sort of character enlightenment that she, or why do you think they chose that?
I think it's a false sense of security for the viewer. Because again, you're looking at safe spaces for the audience, and they think, oh, it's a flashback, the sun's out, it's a brighter scene, therefore, I'm just getting a little bit of information as to the backstory before it quickly flicks. The sun kind of quickly goes down again. I suppose almost sort of suggesting how quickly your light could fade. In that scenario, if you like. I'm not wording it very well, but I think it's an audience trick, because the audience thinks they're not about to have a jump scare. Essentially, I'm not about to see something unsettling. Whereas in actual fact, that whole sequence becomes unsettling. That's just my take.
Absolutely. I definitely agree, CJ. There's a lot of playing with time as well. You start to realize that there's something a little off with the time. And I love the way it's done discreetly. It's not so confusing. It runs very smoothly, but then you realize there's some stuff going on with time, because the people go missing and then they find the bodies, and it seems like they've been dead for a lot longer than a day, right?
Mm.
And then the poor girl, her bicycle's right out there, and nobody realizes, like, oh, she just didn't show up for work today. Oh well, like nobody likes like worried to like check on her. So I thought that was kind of funny, that they're just like, she's just missing. Let's go ahead and replace her, no biggie.
Yeah, that was a little weird. And what kind of really, I don't want to say hurt my feelings, but what kind of got me was the beginning of the Grudge 2, where that there's that new girl, she's been there, 6 months, and they're like peer pressuring her, oh, do this to your skirt, you'll look better, do this, do that. And she wants to fit in, she wants to have friends. So I totally understand that feeling and that sentiment. And when they forced her to go in that closet, I was like, oh man, peer pressure got you, my friend. And it was just kind of sad in a way, because I've been there too. And I was like, oh man, I felt so bad for the character. And then when you see what happens to her, I'm like, it's just very that more devastating, because she wanted is to have friends, and apparently she hung around bad people, and they forced her to do this, and now she has this great curse. So that was kind of sad for me to watch. Do you guys have a kind of scene that affected you guys in that kind of way?
That one kind of creeped me out too, but I love that it's that the girls, they say themselves, this is one of the most haunted houses of all in Japan. Anyone that goes inside gets the curse, and then they all go inside. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? You've been warned, and you go inside, but you're still for a prank. Couldn't you have picked another house and told her? Like, what does she know? What I mean? So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, that's funny, because even though I think the Grudge and the Ju-on films push a lot of boundaries, it still manages to sort of sneak in the standard tropes, like as you say, Kat, when they say that's the most haunted house in Japan, don't go in. That's the typical like warning that you would have at the beginning of most horror movies, and yet they ignore it. And you're watching it, you're thinking, duh, you plonkers, you idiots. It's like you've been told you shouldn't go in there, and then they do anyway. So they kind of, they have it coming to them in that regard. Not the treatment of the dark haired girl, but the fact that they went in, you know what's coming. But it's
Yeah.
still it's not a feature of the movie, but it's still like a nice, standard trope, I suppose, because you still need those, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I did feel bad for her. I mean, I understand she could have just been like, "Fuck you. I don't need you guys. I'm not going in there. Fuck you." And I mean, they weren't holding her up at gunpoint, but I've been there. I understand like peer pressure and wanting to fit in, especially as a adolescent teenager. That's like your thing. You want to fit in, you want to be validated, you want friends. So that is like your main top priority when you're at that age. Now as an adult I can just be like, yeah, no, I would have told them fuck you, but at that age, being a teenager, I don't know, I might have done it myself just so I could be like, "Look, I can fit in. See, I'm cool. I'm one of the
Mm.
cool kids." So I kind of, I'm kind of 50-50
Well, it's a
depending.
very clever piece of writing because obviously what the writers want you to do is to have sympathy for the girl. So you're on her side because obviously it's a little bit of social commentary as well. And then you feel sorry for her, and then that happens to her, and you're like, oh, you've almost become attached to the character a little bit, and then that happens to her, and obviously that makes it all the more shocking, all the more horrifying. To when she meets Kayako, or is it in the at the beginning of the film?
Yeah. It was very satisfying when the girl that was forcing her to get in the thing and kind of shut it and was like ready to record, when she started having things happen to her in the shower, the hair and then seeing her, and I'm like, yes, some vindication. You are
Mm.
going down. I did not feel sorry for her because she was the bully, I feel. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was kind
absolutely.
of, I was kind of, I don't want to say excited because I'm never excited to see anybody's life like crash, but it was definitely a vengeful scene. And I'm like, yes, you got it.
Well, that's it. That's the payoff. If you look at the whole arc of those three particular girls, you get attached to the I forget their names, the dark haired girl, and then you're shocked when she meets the grudge, as it were, and then you hate the blonde girl afterwards, and then something happens to her, so then that's satisfying because you're like, aha, you had that coming, you deserve that, so it's like a payoff um, for
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Yeah, that was very I will say that was a very satisfying scene.
Yeah.
Miss Cat, what's one of the satisfying scenes that you kind of were like, "Yes, you deserved it."
Yeah, that was definitely one of them. But I'm kind of like when the phone rings and somebody answers and you can't really trust anyone once you've kind of gone into the house, or not even gone into the house anymore, once you're exposed to the curse, right? Once you've gone anywhere near someone who has been in the house or whatnot. She's kind of the second one, kind of creeped me out more because she's kind of broken what little chains we knew, what little information we had, that you had to go in the house to kind of get cursed. That's not the case anymore.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it just really creeped me out that nowhere's safe. And she doesn't even have the common courtesy to give you 7 days to get your shit in order. She's just like, that's it. You can't make your will, you can't make nothing. Like, it's on. Like, the second you're exposed, that's it. You might as well just be done. And I was kind of thinking, like, what would I do in that situation? If I knew what I know now from seeing these movies, and I would just be like, yep, you got me. I surrender. Oogie boogie, just do what you're gonna do, whatever, say my prayers and be done with it. So I had a question for you, Luna, as well. What would you kind of do in this situation once you kind of realized there was no shaking her?
Sorry, dog aggro. So something that I did not see anybody do in this movie at all, was kind of talk to some sort of like clergy or a religious leader or a pagan or some sort of some sort of religious official, whether it be a Wiccan, etc. Just be like, hey, how do we break this curse? Do a little bit more research on curses and try to find unconventional ways to get rid of it. I mean, you may not ever, but at least you'll have a fighting chance, because I feel like these people were just going about their lives like, yeah, she shows up, whatever, but they didn't try to reach out to anybody and say, because people that practice witchcraft, or maybe are into Hindu or any other religions that believe in some sort of curse or breaking of curses, maybe try them all. Shit, maybe contact everybody and then see, and then try all of the curse removals from all the religious people. I don't know. That's probably what I would have done, but
So
I
that's what I
love
liked
that
about
that
it.
you're gonna burn some sage. I love it. I love it.
something, anything, just anything that gives you a fighting chance. You know what I'm saying? Just something. Do more research. Contact professionals that can eliminate curses, whether it be the Catholic Church, anybody, everybody, and Judaism, anything. Just I'll do all of them, and then if it worked out, then you won't know which one worked, but at least you'll know that shit. Do all of them next time.
Well, they do a little bit of that in the Japanese one. They go and see a chap who seems to sort of be up on curses and that sort of stuff, and he kind of
Ah,
explains like how it came about. But I like the fact they don't try and find a sort of a hero, if you like, to come and get rid of it. I like the fact that there's just seems to be literally no end to it, and I quite like that as a set piece in the movie, because if you think like, say, like a Buddhist equivalent of an exorcist was going to come along and save the day, then you're kind of just waiting for that to happen, and the fact that it doesn't happen, it keeps you on edge right to the end of the film. Again, I think it's just clever writing. The idea that I mean, the detective in both the American and the Japanese one kind of says, basically that he recites the text from the beginning of the film, where the grip of powerful rage, the curse, and it just goes on and on and on and on. He basically says, without saying it, that you just can't get rid of it. And I quite like that. I quite like the fact that, like, again, as an audience, when you're watching a movie, you want a salvation at the end. You want somebody to kill the bad guy. You want a hero to come in and do something spectacular or find a way. All the modern horror films, they do that. The Conjuring does it, the Nun does it. But the Ju-on doesn't do that. And again, that's why I think it's almost a perfect horror film, because there's just no answer. It's great.
They also don't do that
mm,
in this guy. I don't like when they try to explain it, right? And that's what I love about Halloween too. He's just evil, whatever you want to think. There's no escaping him. So I kind of love that about the Grudge as well. And I was looking up because the sound that she keeps making, that talking about that, that really creeped me out, and especially in surround sound. You're like, oh god, where is she? You're like, the dog's on you. You're like, oh god, what is that? But I looked up like what cats kind of meant in according to it's bad luck in Japan, where folk tales describe how cats can take over the bodies of women. So I thought that was kind of interesting in my symbolism book here. And I love that I finally, at least that's what I take of it. I was wondering what you guys thought as well, but I always thought that sound was like a cat or something. But then seeing the second Grudge, the girl experiences the same things that she did. So she gets her neck broken, right? And she's laying on the ground and she's making that sound. At
Yeah.
least that's what it sounded like to me. And she's watching, so that's what happened to the original Mona. She watched her. She wasn't completely dead. She was dying, yes, unable to breathe because of her snapped spine or whatnot, and watches her husband drown her child. So I believe that that's the sound now that kind of resonates through all the films. Would you guys agree as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrifying
mhm.
sound. I mean, the director just came up with it. He wanted, obviously, the second American movie, they do explain the origin of the sound, as you just quite rightly pointed out. She's lying there with a sort of basically a neck broken and is basically croaking for breath. But they don't explain that in the original Japanese ones. And Takashi Shimizu just basically made the sound. He came up with it, because I've seen like some documentaries and stuff on it, and he just made it like that's the sound. I'm going to have that. It's funny you mentioned about surround sound, because you watch it in surround sound, the bit at the beginning of the first American movie where the carer or whatever it is, she goes up the loft, and you can hear it just gently in the background, and you know what's coming, even though when she turns around you're going to see Kayako come in. But the fact you can hear those little noises in the surround sound is just brilliant. It's such good sound design. But I think I'm undecided as to whether they needed to explain the sound or not, because it's just a creepy sound. And to be honest, that's all you really need. You hear that, she's coming, it's pretty much game over at some point. But it was quite clever how they explained it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's super creepy. Ugh. And going back to the scene at the beginning of the second Grudge, where Karen finally escapes the mental, I don't know, was it a mental institution?
Like a secure hospital, I think it was. I think it's just like a
Yeah.
secure hospital.
When she gets out of there, she breaks free and she's still being possessed. And then finally she enters, she sees the beautiful cityscape. There's all these lights and it looks beautiful, and you're like, she's just like, she sighs of relief, and then that's it. She gets taken out and gets thrown out of that building. And in a way, I felt super bad that she faced that fate, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, at least she's not being tormented in this life. Who knows what awaits her in the afterlife? But then it was interesting how that one guy saw the grudge, like there, holding on to her, and I'm like, where is she taking her? Why is she holding on so tight? I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, that's the
But
question you raised earlier, isn't it? Is she taking
yes.
them on to like a different place? But I have to admit that death of Karen was quite satisfying. Now, call me twisted, but the ending of the first movie is so perfect, and the fact that she stands up, she's all in a hospital, and then it pans round, and Kako's still behind her, and then it cuts to black. It's just such a brilliant ending. So when she's alive at the beginning of the second one, I was like, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. She should have died at the end of the first movie, and then so that kind of like it ruins the ending of the first one in some respect, because I thought it was a perfect ending. So I was like, I'm not having that she's still alive. And so when she is chased through the hospital and then eventually dies, that's quite satisfying, to be honest, because I felt the story didn't work if she had survived the first movie. But
Yeah.
the special effects in that bit where it chases through the hospital are absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah, and it was hospital scenes. I am not a fan of hospital scenes. And when she's running through the hospital and the lights are like turning off and getting all crazy, I'm like, yep, nope, that's when you do not go to the hospital. So
It's brilliant special effects. But, I was quite pleased that happened to her. So call me twisted, but
Yeah, from the end of the first one too, I thought she was done. I was surprised that she was in the second one as well, but I figured it was just so she could be quickly killed off, which is what happened. But speaking of hospitals, and yeah, those creep me out, especially mental wards and things like that. Those of us who have experienced situations like that, definitely when they're tightening the straps on her, that just really creeped me out. That nobody's really listening to you sometimes.
yeah.
And I know life can kind of be that way. But I just want to make my the more blanket statement to everyone that you're never alone, right? Mental health, it's aggravating that people are always adamant about discussing their other medical issues, right? Like, oh, I got this weird crone, and I had to have this done, and this removed. But when it comes to mental health, people don't want to talk about it, and that's the only way to really cure it. Not necessarily cure it, but treat it, right?
Mm.
Is by speaking out and talking about it. So I just want to encourage everyone to speak out and talk about things like that. And that's why I love horror, seeing these things and talking to them with others that have maybe experienced stuff like that as well. So I just wanted to know from you guys as well, did that kind of trigger anything for you guys in your past, or family members or anything like that?
You had a
See,
magnificent freeze there, as if you're possessed.
oh, oh shit, the Grudge got her. Fuck. Just kidding. No. CJ, you want to take this one first?
Um, Along those lines, no. I mean, the point you make about no one's listening is quite an interesting take on that bit, and that probably is where it was going. Me personally, I wasn't affected in that manner. I'm fortunate, I suppose, in that I've not really had any issues of that kind in my life. I've had my ups and downs and so on, but nothing serious. So, to be honest, I can't really relate to that in that fashion. And just being honest, really, I don't really want to sort of make out something's been a problem for me when it hasn't. But I can certainly see why you would say that. Yeah, it's like a good little sort of message.
Yeah, for me personally, I don't know if I told any of our viewers this, but ooh, story time. When I was about 4 years old, two kids in school threw me off of a two-story building. I landed on my forehead and cracked it in half. Right here, so I always have this like karate chop to the forehead. You can see it right there. It's like right there. There's a dent. Well, that's why I have a
Wow.
dent in my forehead. So I survived, but I was in the hospital, and it was a brand new hospital that had just opened up, and something happened where my mom needed to attend to something with my sister or brother or whatever, and she couldn't be with me at the hospital when I was going into for the care for my head wound. So she needed to take care because she had other, the other two children or my siblings, etc. So, oh my God, I remember being so afraid of being in the hospital alone. I was like, it cannot be here. I do not want to be here alone. This sucks. So that hospital scene, I'm like, it was a little triggering because I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Oh God. So I don't know. I think that's why my fear of like hospitals stems from my head trauma and my falling on my head and being alone and it's just fun and triggering, I guess. Fun in a fun way though, because it's like a grudge would never actually show up to your hospital, but it's just kind of a weird one of those weird one-off situations. But I don't know. So that story time's over.
It does. I mean, as an interesting as an interesting question, does that seeing that portrayed in that manner in a movie actually help you? Is there a catharsis in that it triggers you and then you can then deal with it? Does that make sense? Does
Yeah,
it
it's
help you sort of
definitely
cope with it?
facing your fears, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not only that, but it's like, oh shit, yeah. I mean, I was afraid to be in the hospital alone, but at least I didn't have that happen. That kind of like a perspective, like, sure, I was afraid, but nothing of that magnitude ever happened to me. So it's kind of like, yeah, so I have nothing to worry about. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a real a dose of reality of you know like this is what happened. This is how it really is, and it could have been that, and you did
Yeah.
not get that. So
No, I
it's
suppose
kind
the grass can in fact be deader, if you like.
of for sure. Oh man, that was just a kind of a really intense scene for me. But how do you guys feel going back to some of the stuff you have on your layout that you sent us, which was brilliant, by the way, CJ? How do you guys think this impacted horror?
Oh, I
I
think
I think it definitely kind of took things in a different direction, right? We always had, you know, our old ghost stories and things like that, but I don't think we really started experiencing curses and stuff of that nature, and especially um in Japanese lore, they have a lot of different like spirits, good and bad. This one just happened to be a very bad curse, spiritual situation, but it kind of opened that door, I think, for a lot of the J horror that we have now. It kind of got Americans interested and Europeans as well, and in the all that Japanese culture has to offer, and how, you know, it's there's always, at least all the Japanese films I watch, there's always like this uneasiness, like you
Mm.
never quite know what to expect, and I like that. You know, a lot of times horror movies, you've seen so many, and you could just kind of figure it out where it's going from here, but not in a Japanese horror movie. Like anything can happen. Like it's insane sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think films like the Ringu or the Ring and Ju-on the Grudge, they opened the door for to expose the rest of the J horror and general Asian horror. Obviously, there's Korean, there's Thai, and Chinese as well. And I think what it did is it pushed the boundaries of what can be considered unsettling in a movie, by some very basic things. Like, for example, in Ringu, in the Ring, the filter on the film. One of the reasons I said earlier on that the American, the Ring, doesn't feel like the original one is because it doesn't capture the atmosphere, as you said, Kat. You know, the way the atmosphere they portray, and it's a very simple camera trick where there's a blue filter on most of the scenes where Sadako is going to be featured, and that deep blue filter kind of makes you feel psychologically uneasy. You don't kind of realize it at the time, but that's what puts you ill at ease. And the J horror films were so good at using simple camera tricks like that to make you feel unsettled, combined with the fact that the average European and American doesn't necessarily understand every aspect of Japanese culture. So there's a little bit of the unknown. If your average cinema goer who just wants to go and see a horror movie, has never seen anything, made outside of America or Britain before, which would have been quite commonplace. You know, I'm not knocking people who haven't seen, who aren't familiar with Japanese culture, but obviously there's a lot of the unknown about it, you know, as well, which again adds to that edge. You know, the way the Japanese do things just in their everyday kind of life is unfamiliar to us, and the way that unfamiliarity unfolds, sort of folded into the actual horrors of the plot of the story, the ghosts and so on, it just adds to that uneasiness for us, which is why I think everyone loved it, because people hadn't been made to feel that unsettled and that scared in that way before. So yeah, and then the knock on is that you're now starting to see American movies like It Follows is a J horror made in the States, you know, and you're starting to see that impact down the line, which is great.
Yeah, I definitely like both of you guys' perspective on this. I think it's very good, and it has affected a lot of horror going forward, both in good ways, because I like the formula of this, that you have this thing chasing you and it's going to chase you relentlessly everywhere, and that's a good formula because there's no safe place, and when you're watching this, you do not feel safe, even though you are in a safe place. You're in your house, you're not in danger, you're not in trouble, nothing's wrong. But it just, the cinema of it is like you are, though, because you're watching this and you're a participant now to the grudge.
Mm.
So it's like kind of like a vampire in a way, where like you invited it in by watching it, and now you're like, are you cursed now too? So I like that. I kind of like that. And it made me feel that way. And there's a lot of movies coming out like that. There's a really good one that I want to see called, I think it's that new movie where it's like an alien abduction movie. It literally just came out, and it came down, or some weird thing. I don't know.
I know the one you mean. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, it's got
But
some long title.
yeah, it's got a long title. We discussed it recently, but I want to watch that because, like, alien abduction movies and something continuously following you to get you abducted. I'm like, that's not unsettling at all. So I think a lot of that that unsettling, like nonstop, is a chase, and you're a part of the chase now, so it becomes a part of you, and now you're no longer safe. I think it brought that kind of formula, and a lot of cinema is kind of replicating that formula. Not the story per se, but the formula. And I like it. I'm a big fan of it, and it makes it very eerie and creepy. So, yep. Ooh, I see there's also on here the cat. So, do you guys know of any more Japanese folklore? Because I guess in Japan, um, they see it as a super, they're considered supernatural. So they either, people in Japan either fear them or they love them. So, how do you guys feel about that?
I don't know too much about the history of. I mean, Kat was saying earlier on about the sort of the role of cats. I've never looked too deep into it. I mean, what I wrote in those notes is just my basic understanding of it. But the fact that like the cat in the Grudge obviously is so like, you know, a real symbol of fear, because not everyone gets Kayako. Sometimes they get Toshio and the cat, and you know, something as harmless to our audiences. Again, cats are just part of our everyday lives. We're not scared of them in the slightest. But to have this cat be quite sort of, you know, a symbol of you're about to die, I think again added to the is an example of like one of the cultural non-understandings that we have of Japanese culture. As you say, they see them as somehow supernatural, which I can understand, to be honest with you, because cats are quite bizarre animals.
They are weird. I had a black cat. She was crazy, but it was sweetheart. And I've always loved black cats. I just since I was young, my mom just loved black cats. We always had one. We had Smokey, and then we had the Bandit, and and then I ended up getting a cat as well. She was a black cat. I called her Buffy, and I've never been part of that belief that black cats are bad luck or anything like that. It's just funny sometimes when I see other people like, oh God, a black cat just crossed in front of me in the car. Oh no, is something bad gonna happen? I would see that and think of it as good luck. I think it's a more how you think about it. If you think you're gonna have a bad day, sometimes you do. So if you turn it around and you think positive, and then you don't have to worry about the black kitties.
Interestingly,
Oh.
in British folklore, black cat crossing your path is good luck, as I understand it. Whereas obviously in the States, it's considered bad luck. I always found that quite interesting, as to why they
Nice.
were
I didn't know
different. But we
that.
don't have
Awesome.
the history of sort of. I mean, we do have the history of witches and their cats and that kind of stuff, but it's not as ingrained in our sort of historical psyche as other things. Like obviously, you've got Halloween is a massive thing in North America and obviously Canada and America, and there's obviously the whole history of Salem and Massachusetts and New England, everything that happened to witches and so on. For over sort of like 100 years or however long it was, and there's so many movies about it, and there is some of that over here, but it wasn't as prevalent like culturally as it is in the States. So we don't pay too much attention, really. We don't really do Halloween in the same way you guys do. We don't really pay too much attention to witch folklore. We got lots of ghost stories, but they're often around sort of beheaded monarchs.
Yeah, that's funny. Just a little bit fun tidbit here. I used to work at a Chinese bank from, I believe, where they were from, but they thought the number 4 was bad luck. So on our elevator and on our floors, there was just floor 1, 2, 3, 5, and then
Mm,
it went up to 8. So the number 4 is considered bad
it
luck
is.
in Chinese culture. So you
Yeah,
will
and
not.
Japanese. And
Oh
Japanese as well. Yeah, well, one of the early on the very first DVD of the first Ju-on, there's a couple of shorts which the whole film were made based on, and one of them is called 444444444. And basically, it's like a 5-minute short film where the phone rings and the phone number is 44444. Loads of fours, and the
yeah.
curse gets you that way. So yeah, it's an unlucky number. I don't know why. That's honest. I've never
I
looked
I
into
don't.
it.
Yeah, I didn't know why. I didn't ask. I just, and apparently I had a little water fountain and it was facing towards me on a corner. And I'd had one colleague walk by and she was like, "Oh, that's very feng shui." And I'm like, Cool. Don't understand what that means, but if it's good feng shui, then I'll keep it. And then yeah, and I just knew, it's fun to interact and learn about different cultures. But when you take anything from anybody, you have to take it like this with both hands. You take it like this. You don't just do it with one hand, you take it like that. You know what I mean? It's just a sign
All
of
right.
respect. And I knew that the number 4 was bad luck. So that's I learned a lot. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, so I want to check out that short film now. 444444.
Yeah, you can probably find it on YouTube or something like that. But it was an extra on the first DVD edition I had.
Hmm.
I'm still living in the 20th century. I still collect DVDs. So.
Yeah, no, me and Kat both have that perspective that if you get digital media, it can be edited, it can be removed from streaming. If you don't have Wi-Fi, you won't be able to watch it because it's not downloaded, etc. It'll be changed in some sort of way. But if you have a physical media, it cannot be taken away from you unless somebody comes to your house and physically takes it away from you. It cannot be edited. It cannot be changed. Only two things can change it: theft or a house fire. And neither of those sound fun.
Don't forget a hurricane.
Oh yeah, and a
Hurricanes will
hurricane,
take your shit.
tornado, hurricane,
Oh, yeah, so
natural disaster.
Yeah, you have those, don't you? We don't really have them. It's occasionally windy.
Windy.
We don't have any extreme weather here. It rains a lot. It's a bit sunny for a while. It's a bit windy for a while, and that's about it.
What part of, if you don't mind sharing, what part of the UK are you in?
Well, I suppose it's considered south. I'm not far from London, but you probably think everywhere is near London.
Oh, South London. Okay,
So,
south of London. Okay.
no, south. Sorry, southern England. So London is like fairly south, and then I'm kind of like north of that.
North of London, but South England.
Correct.
Ah, cool. That's awesome to know. What are some cool places to check out in southern England?
There's loads. I mean, the thing I love most about England is just the countryside.
Oh,
There's nothing like it in the world. I mean, I've traveled a lot. I've been lucky that I've been to a lot of countries, and there's some gorgeous scenery around the world. Mountains and dramatic valleys and beautiful vistas all around the world. But in England, there's just something about the rolling green hills that doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet that I've seen. And you can get a beautiful summer's day and just look at the fields just rolling away like little clouds. It's gorgeous, and we're full of that. We are a tiny island, but we do have lots of nice countryside.
Aw, you should
Lots of
tell
other
story. You should tell story. You should read books and have like a book reading podcast because I can hear you describe like rolling little. I'm like, keep reading. Yes, love it. So yeah, guys, we've almost approached the hour mark. Can you guys believe it?
It's gone by so quickly.
I know. When we before we take off, CJ, do you have any other input? Or also too, I wanted to ask, since you did see the Japanese version, what are some differences that you found between the American version of the Grudge and then the Japanese version?
I think the most important thing to note is that Takashi Shimizu, he made the first two Ju-on, if you like, the Japanese ones, and then he actually made the Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar as well. So I think the quite important thing that stands out about that remake is it's the same director, it's the same Japanese cast, it's the same building, it's the same sets more or less. But obviously with American cast with known actors, obviously, and a bigger budget, so the effects are a little bit better. Whereas most remakes are rubbish. Let's face it; most of them are absolute pants. Unless someone does something different with a remake, like Rob Zombie's Halloween, it's a different take on the whole Michael Myers thing, and some people liked it, some people didn't, but it's different. A lot of straight reboots are just they're pants. That's all I can say. But the great thing about The Grudge is it's the same director reimagining like the core parts of his first film. So, in answer to your actual question, Ju-on, the first Ju-on film, is like 5 stories going on through different timelines, and the Grudge, the Grudge, is 3 of those stories, and the second, the Grudge 2, if you like, the US one, is the other 2 stories with a little bit of continuation from Sarah Michelle Gellar's sort of part, sort of thrown into it as well. So like things like where in the Grudge 2, where her sister goes out to find Kayako's mother in an effort to try and sort of kill the curse. So I've got a cat appearing behind me. That's in the first Ju-on film, that event, and the guy with the hidey hands guy, he's in the first Ju-on as well. So if you watch Ju-on 1, that's the 2 American films, and then the third American film goes off in a different direction, and Ju-on 2 goes off in a different direction again. So it's like multi-branching stories. But I mean, the plot is virtually the same. The effects are the same. They're just obviously bigger budget in the American films, and obviously it's in Japanese. So as long as you're happy to read subtitles, you can pick up a little bit more of the actual overall story with the Japanese ones, but you don't lose anything necessarily by watching the American ones. Sorry for the cat, by the way.
No, that was so cute. We would love to see the cat if the cat wants to come on camera. We love the fur critters.
He's sitting on the table now.
Oh, he's like, never mind. Hi, bye. That's so cute. We love the critters. My cat is very aloof, so I don't know where she's at, but
Mine's still
eventually
quite young, so there's just into that curiosity phase of, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that? Everything in their brain is like, they need to know what absolutely everything is because they're like 7 months old, so they're still exploring and discovering stuff, and wondering why I'm just sat here talking to a screen. Yeah.
Aww. That's awesome. Miss Cat, do you have any other questions for CJ or anything else? Any questions for me or any other statements about The Grudge?
I just wanted to say that it's my anniversary today, 8 years, and my husband bought me these lovely flowers. So I just wanted to make a shout out to my wonderful husband and thank him for putting up with me and letting me be me and not trying to change me, just accepting the crazy.
That's the important thing. That's the important thing.
Happy anniversary. Yeah, happy anniversary. No better way than spending it with us talking about The Grudge.
Yes, I wanted to tell ladies and gentlemen out there, I didn't get married till I was 37. So don't settle. Wait for that right person, and then you do you. If you don't want to get married, that's up to you. Don't feel the pressure of society making you do certain things. I always saw it as like a merging of companies. It's like my company rocks on its own, but if you want to join my company, all right, we'll get more riches, I guess.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kat. That was really inspirational. I felt a little left out for a bit because I'm in my early 30s, and I'm like, damn.
Hey, you're still young. 30's young. It is.
That was a beautiful speech. I appreciate you giving that speech to all of our viewers. There is hope, guys. Well, thank you for that. I know this series is a little the opposite of hope because once you encounter this, there's no hope of getting out of it. Sorry to say. But thank you, Kat, for leaving us on a very positive note. I appreciated that.
I have a question for the you two ladies, though.
Yes.
We can't sort of talk about The Grudge without asking, can you do the noise?
Oh, shit. I don't know. That's what I got.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Here, let's see.
Mine sounded constipated. Sorry, guys. My Grudge
Brilliant.
didn't take her Metamucil, so now she's constipated. Guess that's why she's so angry. She's got a stuffed booty hole. Sorry. We have to end it on on a comedic note.
Yeah, why
Can
not?
you do it, CJ?
That's my best.
Oh no, he's got us. Ah.
Nice, nice. Very
Aw,
well.
well, thank you, CJ. I want to thank all of our sneaky ninjas that were in the back watching, not saying anything. Thank you for being here with us today. And for those of you that already gave us some likes on the video, you know who you are. Shout out to you. Yeah, so just hope you enjoyed the stream today. Next week we have, what do we have next week, Kat? I'm like kind of, I don't know. Let me look at the nifty calendar and then we'll all let you guys know. So next week we have the 16th. On the 16th, we're doing a live interview with Charles Rosney. He does a book called The Book of Top 10 Horror Lists. So that's pretty awesome. We'll be reviewing some of his stuff and just kind of going over horror with him. And then the very next day, we're interviewing Bill Russell, who has been in a few movies, such as It Came From Somewhere and Dr. Death. So that'll be
Wow.
a lot of fun. So next week, we're booked again for a consecutive week. So you guys do not want to miss that. CJ, where can our viewers find you if they wanna hear your podcast?
You can find it at Virosis Show. That's VIROSIS Show on Instagram and on Facebook. Yeah, you just find that. You'll find it on Spotify. All the episodes are on Spotify, so you can go on and just search the Virosis Show on Spotify. You can find it all there.
Awesome.
And I just wanted to add to what you said about our next guest, Luna. He plays Dr. Death in Puppet Master. So he is the voice of Dr. Death in Puppet Master. So he's one of the creepy puppets. So that's going to be so exciting.
That is going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch that movie. It's been, I think I saw it a while ago, but it would be fun to see it and then get to talk to somebody that was in it. So that'll be a lot of fun. You guys do not want to miss it. All right. Well, thank you, CJ, for joining us for this wild adventure and for doing fun grudge noises with us. I loved every second of it, and I can't wait for you guys to come on by and see us next week. Have a good rest of your week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.